All right, Thursday, March 12th, 2020, the Natrona County Parks Board meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Start out with a roll call. We'll start from this side this time.
I'm Tina Cruz, member.
Jim Miller, member.
Roy Buck, chairman.
Dave North, vice chair. Stuart Hill, member.
Brooke Kaufman, County Commission.
Eric Nelson, County Attorney.
All right, thank you. If we could have everybody stand, face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to look at the February 13th meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I had one question under other business. It has online sales for $7,555 and park vendor sales for $7,630. What was that for? Do we know? Is that for the passes on the mountain?
Yes, Nordic Trail passes were $75.55, and then the vendor sales in the Nordic Ski Lodge, I believe, were $76.30.
I don't believe that number would be right for online sales. That's got to be direct sales. Do we have a real breakdown?
Yeah, and I don't believe that's online sales because I don't think that we have an online.
We do, but we haven't had many people on it. That's why I wanted to make sure that
A lot of that
stated
came
correctly.
to us at the beginning of the meeting, so I didn't know it was coming, so I'm
Okay.
still trying to find out what those breakdowns are.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, and if you could just clarify that, that would be awesome. Thank you.
I wish it was that big.
Yeah. Do we have a motion? Or,
I'll make a motion that we approve. I'll second that motion.
motion is made and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the minutes? We'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are approved. We'll move on to the report here from our Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services Director.
Before I get into the meat of the report, let me just have a minute of personal. I've had a lot of firsts since I've been here. Understanding the importance of lotion in Wyoming. We didn't have that problem in North Carolina. And on the way out to see Travis yesterday, I had saw my first cattle drive out here. That part was interesting. And then today, even in my Air Force days, I never had to worry about going to the store and not be able to get form number 1. Toilet paper. So it's in the light of a lot of the things that are going on in the world right now, some of the things that we're dealing with are small. And, you know, I think even as just a regular citizen, that's tough things to think about right now. From the report standpoint, administrative assistant should be starting within the next week. Our human resource officer gave me 9 applications. I took it that she wanted me to interview those 9 people, so we did. And it was an interesting couple of days in taking care of that. But that person should be starting next week, and that will help us with a lot of our processes and help us to overcome a lot of the paperwork that we are trying to uncover from. They will be located in the same office where I'm at, what used to be a conference room right there. We have now set that up as an office. Their computer should be coming in next week, and some of the other office staff will be helping that person get into great knowledge of everything that we do, as well as there's going to be a lot of processes that I'm going to be putting in place that'll help with the overall management and best practices of our organization. Probably the most vital thing that she'll be helping with right off the bat is, as we come to the end of the rules discussions, helping to sift through a lot of the discussions on that. Met this morning with LUM Advertising to begin working on our social media page with Facebook and Instagram. Mainly from that conversation this morning, it is to get the word out about our park system. And you may say, well, why in the world do we need to do that? Even with the 2 out of the 9 people that I interviewed last week, only 2 of them could tell us where Natrona County parks were. They mentioned some of the state parks, they mentioned some of the city parks. So I think it's extremely important to get the word out about our parks, what our parks are about. And Instagram and Facebook will help with that. But the one thing that they will do is what these guys are designed for in social media is point it back to our webpage, which is already fantastic. I told you guys that was one of the selling points for me, saying this is the place that I want to be, because the webpage is so organized and it's got a lot of the stuff that helped me understand. We want to point people to that. So that hopefully we'll be able to make some approval on some things next week, and then begin to roll some things out. Because one of the things that I want to do in addition with that is begin stewardship campaigns, because if I've heard it from not just our staff, but from members of the community, that there's a lot of people that go out, and I'm not saying it's indicative of everyone, but there's a good people that go to both of our parks that really don't care about the Leave No Trace principles. We want to try to get those things out there and do a big stewardship campaign about that, because I think it's important, not just for this year, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And social media is going to help with that. We have met with Astra to enlist proposals for online registration. That is now in front of our lawyer. Do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chair. I have received the Astra proposal. I've worked with Eileen in the IT department. I have their proposed contract, and I should have that ready for inclusion on the BOCC consent agenda next Tuesday.
Okay, good. And the goal is to get that started this year, at least phased in on what we're able to do. It's going to be a 2-year phase-in process. That way we can get that rolling to help with a lot of our campground management. Any questions on that?
Yes, sir. Are you going to put all the campsites on there, or?
No, we're going to phase it in to where this year we have a goal of certain campsites to start with. That way we can see how the system works, but definitely not all of them. That will be culture shock right off the bat, especially this late in the game.
Okay, so will we keep any that are just open and not reserved? in the ultimate goal?
The ones that are not on the online reservation system will be first come, first serve.
Okay.
Yes.
And that'll be a permanent thing or not?
The end goal is to get all of our campsites on the reservation system, just like the state parks are. It's a lofty goal, but it will help in the overall management as we move forward.
Okay, I sure don't see that working, but
Okay.
yeah. Our Casper people will not like that.
Tim, which ones are you looking at first to start with?
I would really rather not say yet, because with the late process in this game, I'm going to be able to talk with some of our lake staff that's out there and kind of give them some input on it. I would rather not say and us end up going a different direction with the campsites. I've been given some input, but I mean, we're at a quick turnaround to try to get a lot of them in, so it may just be easier to go with some of the ones that are not as busy and I guess sought after, and try it on some of the less busy ones for the first year and then work towards next year. So.
Then I'm not super familiar with the Astra system, so how detailed is that as far as the identifying campsite? Is it simply by a map and number, or does it have some written information on each campsite? Does it have visual?
The Astra system is the same system that's used at almost every state park, at, Wyoming state parks, Colorado state parks, Georgia, North Carolina, Iowa. I mean, there's a pile of them that I've used before. Reserve America goes right back into the Astra system, and they're able to come in and they're able to pull up a picture of that campsite and reserve that campsite, as well as click on it and see if it's available. And that's where it will help out. And I know some of the pushback is going to be that there's a lot of people that are used to getting that first come, first serve and going out and getting that spot. But then there's also folks that come in from out of state to come in, and they don't have that same luxury. And some people may say, well, that's tough, but it's one of those systems that'll bring us into a better business management system of this. So.
And my other question would be, do we have some plan as far as blasting out information on this to the public? Because I can see already that we have a campsite that's reserved, and you pull up and somebody is in your campsite not knowing that it's reserved.
Social media will be one of the big things, web page, as well as doing a lot of the paying for some advertising to get that information out there. And it's going to come back to another thing. It's going to come down to what we decide when it comes to the rules, when it comes to enforcement. Because if we can come to a greater understanding on enforcement, then this can be a good system. If we have trouble coming up to an understanding on enforcement, it's going to be a tough issue, yes. Because that's going to be a tough issue to put just on our lake staff or just on our mountain staff. There needs to be some level of enforcement that will help work through this process. So, all right. The permitting system, you can see I've got a pretty long paragraph there. I'll paraphrase it. One of the things that I've been trying to work through is the permitting process. I have been working through a lot of the permits since we've been here. Some of the permits that have been carried over. Well, in this process, I'm touching it 5 times, at least, where it starts with me, and then I'm talking to the people, and they have some of the information that they want to do. They have some questions that they want to do with, and a lot of the questions they're asking are building questions. So Jason in the planning department and I've talked, and we've talked with Regan and the Board of Reclamation. They have no problem with it starting, and according to our management agreement, all that is asked in the management agreement is that I, as the Parks and Recreation Director, act as a stand-in for the bullet points that the Board of Reclamation is asking for. And they are in the process of coming up with a new site modification list, and it's going to be this thick. And my job is going to be to sift through that. And Mike Hagler and I have been through countless meetings with them in the last couple of weeks trying to work through this process. And all I'm asking for is show me exactly what we need to go through with this process. So the one thing that we're working with is it's going to start with the building and planning. Then when it comes to me, I'll look at it according to the site modification list. And if I see that it needs to go forward for a NEPA study, then I will send it forward. And if it doesn't need to go through to them, then I'll kick it back in to the building and planning. And then where I need to do checks or where it's put into the memorandums where our lake staff does it, I'm going to forward it on to our lake staff, and they will have it to know that these things are going to be worked on. And, Jason will go through it as far as the building and planning is concerned. So it's going to the win-win in this situation, whereas before a lot of the landowners have waited for the process to go weeks after weeks after weeks. And whereas we can say, as soon as you get it into the building and planning, we can start this process and get it through a lot quicker. So
you're looking at eliminating us out of the deal?
Yes, yes.
Now, we've been asked by the county commissioners to be very much involved in that, time and time again.
Right. The thing that I've seen on this, I have not seen any paperwork from the management agreement. And I've asked for history on this. And, you know, when I was asked through some of the people, they said, this is a good process to go through. And I understand where you're coming from on this. The way I can look at back in 2016 is when it came to the advisory board. And in this process, this is the process that will help us do what the Board of Reclamation is asking us to do, and we will do our due diligence by going through this process.
So we won't get any notification on any of this?
As far as permits are concerned, it will be public record, where
So no.
where if people want to see what the permits are that are out there, I will have a list of it. And, you know, as I was going to say later on in this, I have an open door policy. If anybody would like to come and sit down with me, make an appointment to talk with me, I can show you what the permits that are going through out there. That's public record. So, but as far as
Okay.
bringing it to the board, that's something that we're going to work through a different way on this.
Okay, I sure don't agree with it, but,
And I would have to back Stuart up on that, just because that adds a layer of, I don't know if accountability is the right word, but just a chance for people who are being affected by those permits to look at us and discuss and just make their wishes known. And I guess that's one of the reasons why we're here. And that's, like Stuart mentioned, we basically have been directed from BOCC to be involved in that process.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could speak to that a little bit. So candidly, this is always something that's perplexed me a little bit since I came on board. And I did pull copies of the original resolution that established the board. And so there really isn't anything within the mandate of the board that would grant you guys approval or denial authority on these. And I think that when you look at the management agreement that we have entered into between the county and the Bureau of Reclamation, I think that Tim's take on that is correct. So I'm not sure why it changed in 2016. I mean, I haven't found any record of that, but certainly that's not borne out by the agreements and the resolutions that we have. You know, I don't, you know, I leave it to you guys in terms of reporting. I mean, I think, you know, it certainly can be privy to it, but I think that the former park director, when he was bringing those to the park board, I'm not sure why, because there
because he's
doesn't-
ordered to,
Okay, and by whom?
the BOCC.
Okay, yeah, and so we can certainly bring it up to the BOCC, but it's not borne out in any of the agreements that authority is there. So
It kind of had to do with, on the history side, if I may,
yeah, no, please.
making sure that everything was square, because we had problems with park directors, we had troubles with planning, and they were doing things that were not following correct rules. Tim, you haven't been here very long. You've seen one set of us going through those things. I would at least ask that we go through the process here on this board for a year and see how it rolls out, if that's possible.
I mean, from the legal standpoint, I mean, I have no problem with that. I think to make it transparent and really legally enforceable, you know, I think it would take an amendment to the resolution. And so, I mean, that's certainly that the BOCC can address. But, and I'm happy, I actually made copies in case you guys want to see it. But, you know, the enabling resolution for the park board, I mean, clearly, so the one item, it says adopt rules and regulations, and obviously that's done by the BOCC, and I think it's because that inclusion in this original resolution just isn't supported by law. As an advisory board, I don't think any advisory board can promulgate rules and regulations that have the weight of law. But then B through H, I mean, clearly is, you know, soliciting input, assisting in development of goals, submitting recommendations. So I would agree that if you wanted to get the reports and be made aware that there's the legal authority for that, But I think that if we want to have it as an approval process, and I understand that's the way it's been done, I think that we probably need to amend that.
Okay. All right. Moving into the mountains.
Maybe go back to lakes for a minute, please?
Okay.
Thank you. On the Instagram and Facebook part, what is our cost for upkeep on that? Are they going to do that, or is the
Okay,
new
we're going
assistant going to do it?
back to number 2.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, part of the report, please.
All right, restate your question, please.
On the Instagram and Facebook, what is the cost to upkeep?
The cost of upkeep, I didn't bring that sheet with me in this, but
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, so in not understanding necessarily what support network he was going to have for the communication in parks, in working with Loom, the scope through the end of this fiscal year is around $6,700. We have been working with Eileen on some of the county side and understanding what the mechanisms are or support is available on that side. Nothing's been committed to past getting us through the end of this fiscal year,
The fiscal year ends?
June 30th. Yes.
Yep. And this is one of those systems that if at the end of this fiscal year, we decide that we want to take it back over and post ourselves, there was a discussion today that, yes, it is something that we could easily do. The plus with having another group manage it, when they get an alert of a negative comment, they have a way of addressing that negative comment right away. And that's something that if I happen to be wrapped up out at the lake where there is no cell service, they're able to take care of that without, me having to hawk that. So,
Okay, thank you.
good. Okay, one of the things that was on my plate to get done whenever I got here 2 months ago was the RFP for the pavilion at Ponderosa Park. We have put the RFP out there. It has been advertised, or it's going to start being advertised this Sunday. It's going to be Sunday, Wednesday, and Sunday. The deadline for all bids to come in will be April the 3rd. As far as a full conceptual drawing of it, we don't have. We have an idea of what we would like, and we put those specs in there. And this has come through many meetings, from what I understand that a lot of the interest groups have had before, and all of that input was put into the RFP. One of the major concerns was, can it go on the existing slab? I made a trip out there. It was a very interesting day because I rode out there with Phil, the guy that grooms the state trails for the snowmobiles. That was a fun afternoon. And being able to be educated on some of the history of the park and things like that. And it's a beautiful park. And the building should be able to go on the existing slab. And what we've asked for is a building that can either be put together as a whole or in pieces and delivered and not take a lot of time to be put together up there. So again, this is one of the things that I was handed when I got here, and I would like to work towards getting this to completion so that we can work on some other priorities up there. And some of the other priorities I can go ahead and tell you will be some of the pavilions that we have at the Bear Trap area. So I'm waiting for some of the snow to come down so I can at least look at that. We will be looking, because I have talked with a few people, and the need to get wood out of that park, it's great. And the system that someone suggested that I go with, and it's not a bad system to look at, is permitting people, by permitting so many people there per time period to go through and help remove the wood. I'm still open to some ideas on that process, but I know that as soon as we can physically, safely get in there and let groups get in there, this is the process that we need to do. And what I'd like to do is have that process to where we can announce it and have it ready to roll out by April 1st so people can start making their plans. Let's see. Any other discussion on that, on the mountain?
Just to clarify on the plans, were those the plans that Jason Gutierrez put together?
Say again?
Jason?
Yes.
Put together?
Those
So
were, well,
that was for a modular
that was
construction?
one of the ideas for a modular.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at,
That's-
yes. Yep.
Yeah, it would be cool if we could get a copy of those, that preliminary plan or drawing or whatever you're working off of.
Right.
Just
What I can do is, once the RFP comes in, then we can look at how some of the RFPs have come together, because really, the preliminary design is not what we've put out as far as to the people in the RFP. It is simply a steel building or something like that that can be put together, and we can piece it together to put out there. So. Anything else? No? Okay. The Casper Water Ski Club has submitted the 2020 master plan for review. This has been created in response to a request in 2018 compliance review by the Bureau of Reclamation. It was handed to me on a thumb drive, and you should all have copies of that in your digital. Any discussion on that one?
It was pretty generic compared to the other ones we've seen, that's for sure. But I'd make a motion to pass that, approve it.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion made and seconded. Do we have discussion? No discussion, so we will go to the vote. Would all in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Okay. In that's it for, let's see, I guess the discussion topics come up with
Can we
you
stay on the
guys.
lakes for just a second?
What's that?
Let's go to lakes while we're still here.
Okay.
Cottonwood, we were to do a campground upgrade there next. Is that still on the table?
Good point. And that's one of the things that we have been working on. There's some things that are going to be presented to the commissioner next week, because there is and some of this is things that have been worked on way before now. And it's things that Mike Hagler's working on. Basically, there's a lot of carryover money. And we are in the process. We've had a lot of meetings with them in the last couple of weeks. And some of the carryover money has been put with some contingents. And one of the contingent is, as far as a priority, is Cabin Road. Cabin Road getting done. But one of the contingencies upon Cabin Road getting done is Cottonwood and Black Beach getting done first.
That's the roads.
Right.
I'm talking about the campground upgrade.
Talking about the
I saw Pathfinder, but we had all voted here to approve.
the full
to do Cottonwood
hookups,
next.
the full hookups and
Yeah,
campground.
and leveling and going in there and do everything we did at like Okie Beach.
All right, I'm trying to make sure we're talking about the same area. We're talking about the full hookup area that we're in the process of bidding out?
No,
Okay,
no, it's the
Then-
whole Cottonwood Beach. It's in the Alcova master plan, Pathfinder, all that master plan.
that has not been put before me yet,
Okay,
so.
so that should be our next one after we finish up with the ones you've just stated and the existing campground we have now.
Right,
And that was also going to be a shower house over at Cottonwood.
right.
So-
That's good input.
And I thought that Mike was working on those down the road plans. So
Right.
that might be something that he has information on.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about a lot of them, but we're still attempting to put together the 5-year plan, basically what we're looking ahead at for years to come. I mean, there's a lot of folks who are saying that Pathfinder should be next.
Are we not involved in that 5-year plan?
Yes, that's what we're working on now, yes. And I mean, I'll say this, in the 2 months that I've been here, I'm doing a lot to uncover stuff, and my door is open anytime. And I'll say it again, anybody would like to set an appointment to help give some input on that, I would love to do that. That way, in this situation, we're not, one, I'm not hit by surprise at a advisory board meeting, as well as nobody else, and that way we can talk about them ahead of time in that.
Tim, just for clarification, my understanding is that there were some projects that were on the agenda that were not bid out correctly in the past, or the total funding is not available, I guess is probably the easiest way to put that.
Be more specific.
Like Cottonwood and Black Beach, the road, that money is, from what my understanding
Right,
is, that
and that's-
money is not there currently to get those projects done, and which creates
It's
an issue
there,
with the
and as
roads
far
for
as
the
a
cabins.
budget is concerned, it's not in the current budget. It is one of those deals where a budget amendment will probably have to be done in order to get these projects done. But before that can happen, a letter from the Bureau of Rec has to come to us, and it comes to the commissioners. And with that, then the commissioners will make a budgeting decision on that. And once that is done, we've been assured that the funding will be there so that we can get those things done. But it's jumping through those hoops, because yes, these were projects that had not been bid out, had not been done, and some of it had been sat on. And that's one of the things that Mike and I have been meeting a lot with the BOR to try to get these things done.
Okay, well, I mean, I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that that's the reason why Black Beach and Cottonwood haven't been,
Right.
they're kind of on the back burner, I guess, because even though they were in the original budget, the funding was not there, or isn't right now, I guess is probably the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, what
So-
letter are we waiting for from the BOR?
It's a letter from the BOR, basically with permission to carry these funds over.
Okay.
So when you said, earlier, you said money contingency, that's the contingency you're talking about?
Right.
So the money is kind of in limbo somewhere, and contingent on the BOR approval to do the work on the roads that has been in part of our 5-year plan.
Right.
And then once the BOR responds and gives permission, then the money will become available and we'll get those projects done.
Correct.
And you see that happening in about what timeframe do you?
I know that discussion is going to be had with the commissioners next week.
Okay.
So, and there's a couple of priorities that are on our list right now, and I'm trying to make sure that we keep them. One is the Cabin Road project. I want to see that come to completion. And in order to bring that to completion, Cottonwood and Black Beach roads have to be taken care of before we can even begin on the Cabin Road project.
So what date do you think we're going to get on these roads now? I mean, it's been promised before in prior meetings, so, it'd be ready this year.
I understand, yes.
So any ideas?
All I can say is once we have that conversation next week, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
I'm not trying to hide anything. It's,
No, you're not.
before we can speak to it, certain steps need to go through.
As a bureau, I know government agencies can be kind of challenging from time to time.
I can.
I know government agencies can be a little bit challenging from time to time, especially federal agencies. They're not willing to waver at all and let us start working on the cabins, roads if we have, and I guess what I'm getting at is if we have a plan that we are going to get in and get Cottonwood and Black Beach done, the only thing I'm looking at is that, we've got 2 months before the season really starts with the cabins.
Yeah, it's
And
a
once you
very
have a
good
lot
point.
of people in there, it's going to be a lot harder to get that work done, whereas a lot of the stuff on Cottonwood or Black Beach, you could actually do during the week when you don't have that traffic.
What we're up against is, because of the fact that over the last couple of years, some of these projects haven't been done, they are at the point with us, we've got to get these things done in order to, and some of it comes down to public/private. Making sure that if it's a public area, those when it comes to BOR and some of their paperwork that they've got to do, public takes priority when it comes to that.
And the argument back is, There is no private land out there.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's all public.
right.
That's why we've got public camping areas. That's why we have now picnic tables down in there.
Right.
So you got to throw that back in their face.
Right. Well, it's choosing my battles and understanding that as we.
This is a
as we-
battle they've been throwing at us for a very long time.
Right, understand that.
And we can't get emergency vehicles in there.
Okay, at this, then I'll leave it for I will say this, I want to make this discussion when it comes to the rules and regulations before Eric speaks to it. As I was saying before, my office is open, and for any member of the public as well. If you make an appointment and want to talk about some of these, and if you guys can help let public know that, I try to schedule my days out, and I'm interested in talking. And, as we talk about, one of the things over the last couple of weeks was the survey that went out. And in that survey, let me grab this. This survey was done through social media and not done through our webpage. And that came with some pushback. The survey, the design in this survey was to go to a different segment of society that had not been giving input, because we've received input from all the user groups, and we're still receiving input from the user groups through our website, through public comment, through people can give written comment and various things like that. So everybody's had that opportunity. This was an opportunity to grab through a different segment of society through the social media process, through AdBay, and we received close to 900 comments on this. And you can look at, if you've had time to look at the survey results, you can tell that it wasn't really one user group that answered these questions. It seemed like a good segment of society, and give us a even better chance to look at what the best practices are as we look to the decisions on the rules. But as we go further to the rules process, one of the things I'm committed to doing is looking at the best practices, not just for now, but again, 5, 10, 15 years from now, as we look to what will affect our parks and to affect our land and affect our user groups. But my office is open to hear input. And I can segment, certain times of my day to talk about that as we, move forward. I will say this much in that same light. Some of the things that are going to be priorities over the next couple of weeks are looking at this stuff when it comes to the rules as we prepare for it. But then also, we're getting into the hedgerows when it starts getting ready to look at budget and make sure that our staff have what they need to get ready for this busy summer that's coming upon us. So, I'll be able to make some time in my office, but I'd like to know some of that kind of stuff ahead so that I can schedule it out, if that makes any sense to you. So, okay? Thank you.
Eric, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really don't have a lot to add. Really need more direction than anything. As you can see, we've got another town hall set for March 26th. The survey was conducted. I guess my question is, we've received some input via the survey, via the previous town hall, via the website, but we have not had another work session to go through and potentially make changes to the rules based upon that feedback. So frankly, from my standpoint, I'm not sure that without having another work session in between now and March 26th, we've already heard from folks on the rules the way they are. And so we can certainly have it and see if we get any additional input. But I would just, I guess, ask the board if you all would desire another work session to consider the comments and feedback that we've received and potentially make edits prior to the 26th. Otherwise, I guess the other thing would be to do that after the 26th and tee it up for the next park board meeting in April. It's really, we haven't started the statutory clock, so to speak, so it really is, I think, up to you guys in terms of how much, more interaction and feedback you guys want.
I think, in my opinion, a work session before the 26th would be a good plan, just so that we can make any red line revisions we want to with the parks rules, get that out to the public before the 26th, and maybe even put some bullet points up. I don't know if we can do this on the website, but as we publicize the 26th meeting, but also throw some bullet points up of, give us your opinion on these 5 items, or something like that, something to that effect. I think we need to hear more than just Rotary Park issues, in my opinion. So that's my thought.
Mr. Chairman, I agree. The survey only had 2 rules on it. Drones, and bikes, yes or no, on Rotary. I thought that was going to be a survey about the rules, but it was really 2 items.
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
Nope, I agree.
So I would push for a work session in about 10 days to 2 weeks, somewhere in that time frame. If we could do and I don't know how your schedules look, but it needs to be, I would say, a week or so before the town hall. And then so that we can just put together our ideas, look at the rules and regs, kind of go through them one more time, make any red line revisions, post that so people can see it, and then look for any additional other comments so we can kind of get some more specific information on all of the rules, not just a couple of the hot buttons.
I think that leaves us next week only, right?
Yes, it
Well,
does.
next week I'm dead in the
That-
water, so.
That's it. I mean, if you're talking about before the board,
Yeah.
or before the next meeting,
Or we do it right now?
so, except we don't have the information. So,
I will not be available on the 26th.
just,
And then
just as a thought pattern, I mean, I understand what you guys are saying, and I agree, but with the short time frame that we're dealing with right now, and because there was only a couple of real rules on the survey, I think we'd be better off postponing it until after the 26th, so that we have public comment that we can put in there along with that. That way we're dealing with everything in our work session and not just not just Rotary Park. Because I agree, we need to talk about all the rules and not just for Rotary Park or the bridle trail. So, I mean, that's my thought pattern. That would give us a little bit of time between the 26th and our meeting in April on the 9th.
Yeah, if we had more time, we could work in a work session, but
Yeah, and I definitely hear you. My week next week is not good, so
I resemble that remark.
we can, I would still, for preparation for the town hall, it would be nice to throw up some bullet points, I think, on the website as we advertise that, just asking, maybe in a question form, what is your opinion of this rule? What is your opinion of this rule? And just pick on, I would say, up to a half a dozen topic points, just to kind of get people thinking about something other than the couple hot button issues. I think we could at least get that done before the work session, or the town hall. And then I agree, may do a work session after the town hall.
I think that would be advantageous, and I think that would be a better use of our time by doing it that way. If we just have something, we can post something out there and say, these are topics that we would like to address at the next town hall meeting, and don't even have necessarily Rotary Park on there. I mean, we've talked about Rotary Park a lot. And I'm not saying we can't talk about Rotary Park. I'm just saying, let's look at the lakes. Let's look at the mountain, and look at the other areas and see if we can direct that for the next town hall instead of just Rotary Park.
So what would be the best way to accomplish that? Would that be getting comments to Eric or Tim? Or,
Mr. Chair, I would say if you guys could have comments or areas that you want to focus on, probably send it to both of us, and then we'll work with IT to get those posted. There's additional information that I want to populate on that page, but for other reasons, I haven't gotten to it, so I can push that as well to just try to, a lot of that is Rotary Park and Bridle Trail specific in terms of the background documents, but try to push that out so that it's there, and we can certainly come up with some questions for people to be thinking about.
so I guess I would just put that to the board and say, if you have something that you're particularly interested in or have an idea, maybe we'd all submit possibly like 4 or 5 topic points. Get those to Eric and Tim, and then you can choose from those, look at whoever, what the big hitters are, and then put those up, if that would be possible to do. Okay. So we'll try to get that done within the next, I would say, week, so that they have time to work with it and get it out so the public can see it.
I would say, yes, definitely, if you're gonna do it
Yeah.
by the end of next
By-
week, that way I can get it within a week's ahead of time
Yep.
to our IT, and they can get it publicized.
Yeah, because that'd only give us a week. We only got 2 weeks from the night before our town hall meeting, so the sooner the better we get
Correct.
that out. We're going to give people a chance to digest it a little bit and think about what they want to say and what other areas they're concerned about.
Does that give you time, Eric, to get your,
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good plan. I mean, once you get us the information, I don't think the turnaround will be very long for
Okay.
us to get it on.
so let's work it that way, and then we'll plan a work session following the town hall meeting. Any other discussion as far as the rules and regs and/or town hall meeting? Okay, we'll move on to the election of officers. So basically, I'll just open this up to the board and make your case, make any recommendations, nominations, however you want to do it.
I never like to say anything about it.
I guess my recommendation would be to stay the same unless someone wants my position.
I would suggest the same, too. If you guys are interested in doing it. Tina, you want to be chair?
No, I'll stay. I'm just comfortable staying as a member.
Make a motion, we keep the officers the way they are.
I second.
Okay, so we have got a motion made and seconded. Why is everybody so tentative here? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion for election of officers? So no discussion, move to the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 I guess I should abstain, right? Technically. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, so we'll keep the officers as is for another year or so. All right, we'll go ahead to public comments now. So, any public comments?
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road. My ears are getting worse, so I'm going to wear my Mickey Mouse ears here. First and foremost, out of every meeting I've ever sat on, or anytime I was a board member of this group back in the old days, I've never sat through as effective and an efficient a briefing as this man gave tonight. So I want to give him one heck of an attaboy. Good choice. I can feel some frustrations. He moves pretty fast. Tim, if I'd encourage you, this man knows the lake inside and out. Get him out to those appointments. He's a businessman. He's not retired like some of the rest of us, but get him involved. Next thing, this gentleman sitting over here in the blue shirt, I got to really commend him. He's in here on his own time at every one of these meetings, and that hasn't gone unnoticed. The gentleman sitting beside him is a breath of fresh air. Brooke, you owe him a good box of candy, okay? He can run a pretty good tow truck. So, we won't talk anymore about that subject. You didn't know I could keep such a good secret, did you? So that was a bad day. That was Mother Nature at its finest. And it all worked out, and the event that was held there was fantastic. And you talk about dealing with adversity. The majority of those people, all the participants were handicapped, and the majority of them are blind. They never missed a lick. And that was such an up and down week for weather. I've never seen that, the likes of the road conditions on Casper Mountain ever. I hope they come back. Maybe we ought to push it out a week or two on them. So, but with what I said about the lake supervisor, we need the mountain supervisor here too as well, to really round out the team, starting right here, right here, right here, and here particularly. You need that mountain superintendent up here at these meetings too as well. And if he can't fit that in, you need to find somebody that can. And that's important as far as the line of communication. I see it working well. If you're interested in your job, when you're dealing with the public on that grand of magnitude, you all need to be involved. Every supervisor, and if you have to pay them the overtime and give them time off or comp time, let's get it done. So with that, I have a couple of questions, and Roy, please, tonight, you and I have a personality conflict, and when we get to that point, just turn it over to Dave, okay? Fair enough, I don't want to even talk about it. As I'm sitting here, I didn't make the last meeting, if you noticed, and it wasn't because the road was closed on him, but
All I'll say, Tracy, is we'll keep it respectful. And
We
you have
will.
to
I'll leave
understand
it
that
at
the
that.
board may not answer your question. We can elect not to answer a question if we don't feel that we have the information.
this is an open meeting, representation through taxation. I'm not a constitutionalist, but I do know it. So I got shut down the last time at the meeting, and you're championing the bicyclers on the bridle trail. That's a given.
No.
Okay? We'll leave it at that. I have a map there. I have a question, and I want it answered to make that man's job easier and the other 4 Parks Board members' job easier, and they will agree with me. I do my canvassing, okay? So I have a quick question as far as Ponderosa Park. Didn't even deal with what you're nervous I'm going to ask. Tim, I would encourage you to get the state forester involved with you to mark the trees that you want to turn out for contract to cut. He'd be more than glad to help you out. That's a suggestion. Do what you want with what you may. As far as your next coming meeting, I'm an organizer. I was picked to run one of the largest coal corporations in the country, and I turned the job down, so I know management. But I'm going to tell you, I'm glad you put your work session on the back, but if you're going to put out bullet points, let's include every segment of the parks, both lake and both mountain, and put an itinerary together and segment the meeting at the next input and, your next town hall, If you run out of time, you can push that work session back, because there's really nothing earth-shattering why we got to get these current rules and regulations amended. We can work at those, a bite at the elephant at a time. Yes, we housed Rotary Park around. Yes, it was comments. But you got to allow people to come in like myself tonight and ask questions. That's your job, to field questions. That's why you have a public comment section. You can't just cut off the public at the kneecap if they're civil. And I'm
Tracy.
very civil.
Just for clarification, the town hall is basically just for public comment. And,
I understand that now.
you know, the next meeting, our regular meeting will be where you can ask questions and stuff like that. But the town-
It says it's a comment section here.
No, I mean, here,
Okay.
you're fine. I'm just saying, our next meeting on the 26th, that meeting will strictly be for public comment.
But what I'm trying to communicate to you guys is you're getting the cart ahead of the horse. You got the lake people just organizing, and they get out there to the cabin areas and the trailer park and the fishermen and everybody else. That's when you want to have the next hearing, is sometime this summer for rule changes for Alcova.
Well, and those are the ones we want to be here. I
Exactly.
mean, we want all of them to be here next time around.
So
That's what
in-
we were talking about.
And you're
is we
putting,
want to make sure that they're inclusive.
you guys are working
this.
on, you're working on your Facebook page. You're going to have that coming together, your communications right here. This is being YouTubed, right? So that's open to the public. You're just getting into your new phase of communication. You're coming out of the dark ages into the new age, so to speak. And you want to only go through that rule-making process as few at times as you really need to do. And I think, you know, you can push it out as far as you want to push it out. You can make interim changes, you know, based on some of this stuff. But that's just my suggestion, okay? But I think you as an advisory board, the more feedback that you can get, the more questions you can have asked of yourselves. You may not be able to answer them, but your man right here does a pretty good job of it. And, you know, I have no problems with that. I'm just trying to offer you guys suggestions, okay? I would like to get Eric a copy of the resolution where it's established this board. That goes back quite a ways, doesn't it? And I'll get that from you later. You and I need to get caught up anyway one of these days. The new campground at the lake, I had that question. I asked Stuart that out in the hall. So I've overheard in several of these meetings there was going to be a new campground. I don't even use the lake, but I would really think that the people that are pushing for that campground would probably show up at your feedback meetings for your town hall on it. So the first one of those came together pretty fast. The majority of the people were at the last meeting, the last town hall we got here through our Casper Mountain Landowners Association and through the Central Wyoming Trail Alliance. That's why that and the snowmobile group for the most part. So you got other user groups. Dave did a good job of getting the fishermen and stuff lined out from that, but I don't think the Pathfinder Boat Club people were here or anybody else, were they? And I think that's important. I think it's important to have the water ski people here, the other user groups out there, but mostly those campers and those fishermen and stuff that are complaining about the roads and those types of things. I'm just about done, Roy. And there's no one here waiting in line, so you owe me 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Peace, brother. I can always forgive, but I didn't speak to you tonight, and I don't do that very often. So if I don't say hello, I'm pissed. I'll leave it at that, okay? Tina, you're doing a good job. So's your sidekick beside you. All of you are. You're making lots of progress here, and I don't blow smoke. I only give accolades when accolades are due, okay? We gave Tim his attaboy. We gave the lake superintendent on his own time, the mountain supervisor. We talked about the wood. I got my last question. And Roy, you don't have to answer it tonight, okay? I do own a mountain bike. Okay, I'd love to have one of those motorized mountain bikes. But there's a time and place for all of them, okay? We don't need to get into that discussion tonight on them, but to help lay the bridle trail to rest, I wish I could shut the TV off, okay? But we can't. Frankly, I favor a trail all the way to Hogadon. I'll go on record and say that right now. But I have to look at it because Doug's not here tonight, obviously. He's, I think, still in New Zealand. He has all my maps, so I've got an archaic map there. But it's pretty easy to take that landowner's map. All you got to do is go next door, and Eric can get this, and Eric needs to do this for all of you. And I'd encourage you guys to get involved in that process, or get a landowner's map for the mountain. It's very beneficial to, as a good neighbor, to know who you're dealing with. And they update that monthly, damn near daily over there on them. But the bridle trail needs to be broken down in 3 segments. And that's where I was going with my question that night, Roy. I was trying to diffuse the bicyclists. And I think they're kind of happy with where part of this is going right now. But, you know, there was a good crowd here and was trying to get back to some discussion. And we did bring other people back to the podium, even though we got crosswise with one another. But in knowing the topography up there, there's 3 segments of the bridle trail. There's the lower, there's the middle, and there's the top. And like I said, this map's pretty archaic by ownership, but I'm going to lay it out there. And I'm asking you guys, I'm pleading with you, to break the bridle trail down into 3 sections when we're talking about discussion. And when you put your rules together, you almost have it. I was surprised Michael Reed showed up. I mean, he wasn't a happy camper about his kids about getting ran over, so I don't know where that relationship lays right now. But when we're talking about motorized bikes, and we're talking about topography, the lower part of Garden Creek is awfully dangerous in areas. You know, I haven't walked that for a long time, but I'm planning on it, and that's where the other thing I was trying to encourage you, before we throw anything in place, I think we need to get all the user groups together and go up there and walk that, make a Saturday morning affair out of it. And maybe the Rotary Club would even host it. But I think it'd be informative, and I don't think it's too far away. I think those landowners could be convinced, and I know them pretty well. They've been in here fighting tooth and toenail. But I think if we came up with a viable plan, or if there's detours in other areas, but most importantly, and I did get brought up that night, the suggestion of trying to put a county land trust together, to try to set aside some 1% monies in the future, or philanthropists such as Mickey and Susie and so forth in the past. Let's try to keep earmarking, because these properties are going to keep changing hands. Ours is a good example of that. My son's going to inherit it. He may not want to keep it. And he may be in a situation where he wants to give all of our acreage to extend Crimson Dawn. My brother-in-law are not favorable of that right now due to the condition of the park it's in. But I'm optimistic this guy's going to turn that around, and this advisory board.
So what's your question? I'm
My
curious.
question is, I'd like you to come up with the boundaries for, or basically for pointed discussion, the lower quadrant of the bridle trail, the mid-section or quadrant of the bridle trail, and the upper section or quadrant of the bridle trail. So when we talk about that in future discussions, we know specifically what area that segment of the trail lies in. Because right now, technically, you don't have permission for bicycling to go across to get all the way to Hogadon, do you?
No, there's not.
So what part of Garden Creek were we really talking about? I mean, or the bridle trail at the last hearing?
Well, the bridle trail, in my experience with it, I mean, I get where you're coming from as far as breaking it into 3 sections, but as far as we're concerned, I mean, I know that Rotary basically is the lower section of that, but the bridle trail is one unit as far as we're concerned. We're not looking at that as 3 separate trails. It's already confusing, and And
But it's confusing to me. What can I use and what can I not?
well, the agreements that the county attorney has been working on are to make what we call the bridle trail, as basically an inclusive loop that encompasses the entire bridle trail. And that is a set trail from the lower parking lot all the way to the top and back in a continuous loop. And so the agreements that we've reached for that bridle trail with the various landowners are to establish a county-maintained contiguous loop from the bottom to the top and back down again.
Define top.
Well, I'm saying that the upper, or I would say southernmost section of the trail.
Where is that?
Well, it's on various maps.
Well, I happen to have the one right here that Bruce Lamerson, helped put together, and it identifies the people, but this only takes in what I would call the lower and the midsection. So my interpretation of the top is at Hogadon.
No, not as far as we're concerned, because
Okay.
then we would be dealing
So
with
you're-
private property issues and.
You're dealing with the guy right here, you're talking to the guy's been exposed to that for 60 years, okay? And all these other landowners, I can tell you, I talk to them all the time. I private chat with them, they call me on the phone, I go to social functions, everything else. Jim knows I get around up there like, a reporter for the Billings Gazette. But if I'm confused, I tell you, a lot of other people are confused. So if we can lay that confusion to bed and define exactly where that's at, and the signage is going to help tremendously.
Yep.
That's going to help a whole bunch.
So if you want to see the what we would call the bridle trail, that would be the map that Eric had up on the screen during the town hall meeting. We had a digital map on the television screens, and that is what, when we discuss the bridle trail and rules for the bridle trail, in my opinion, that's what we're discussing. We're not discussing anything beyond what is currently agreed on, the agreements with the county to maintain and operate as the bridle trail. We're not dealing with anything beyond that towards Hogadon.
You just laid my mind at ease, but I'm just one of many. So we have a failure to communicate here is what we have, okay? I missed it at that meeting that night. Maybe my sight's going bad too, but I had my glasses that night on them. But I think the bicyclers, I think there's a bunch of them. I'm reading that Central Wyoming Trails Alliance, some of those postings, they think it goes all the way to Hogadon.
No, everybody, and because I am close to the community, the bicycling community, I've been a cyclist for 40 years.
I know you have.
And I've ridden up there everywhere on the mountain
And
for 40
you
years.
understand I'm not anti-bicycle, right?
Right, but let me answer. Basically, I know, being a business owner who dealt with that community, being a cyclist myself, I'm very cognizant of the people who utilize those trails and where they utilize the trails and how they utilize the trails. And there is such a small proportion of the cyclists that would actually go from Hogadon to the bridle trail. We're probably talking 6 to 8 people in this town, and those people all know that they are violating the law when they do it.
Here's where I'm coming from, okay? In the 6 years I've been up there, I'm watching all kinds of use explode. We might be there right now. It's kind of the good old boy type of routine, knowing the people that do and do not do that. I mean, I've got the same issues with snowmobilers in my area or skiers and what have you. But the long story short, I think if we can clean that up a little bit, don't look at the clock, Roy. My time's as valuable as yours. You're retired. Okay, I'm retired. I know you've been to Rock Springs. I heard that. So on and so forth. But, Jim, do I make sense most of the time?
Some of the time.
Okay. On him, Dave, have I pointed out some good things?
Yeah.
Stuart,
I like where you're going tonight, I really do. You're
Okay.
making
Me too.
good sense.
I do too. I'm with you.
Okay.
I do have a question for you,
And I know
Tracy.
Tina, because she watched, she shakes her head over there. Yes, she knows you when you get, she's a good girl.
I know that a lot of the questions in the bikers are going, I've read through the surveys, we know what kind of troubles we're at. We've talked about the bottom section, and you're correct. That's pretty tight down there. That's pretty dangerous. Where is opportunity on a different route for bicyclists?
That's what we need to nail down.
That's the question I'm posing to you as a homeowner up there, landowner, and you know those folks. Can you come up with another route? Is there another way that we can get people away from the walking trail?
That's-
the bicyclists away from the walking trail.
Here's where I'm going to put it back to Tim, okay?
Thank you.
And I got Tim nailed as being with us for a long time. And this doesn't have to happen in the next year, but it comes back to our park plan, okay? And the park plan needs to be looked at again. And if I was a visionary, I'd love to see that third segment, the upper segment, developed to where you could ride a bike all the way from town to Hogadon. And being a further visionary, there's a lot of room. This would be a cooperative program. And I'm not a developer, I'm just being a visionary. Because I know there's a lot of need for people, younger people particularly, wanting to have a piece of the pie on the mountain and a place to go get away. And off the east edge of Hogadon Park, or Hogadon Ski Area parking lot, be a great place for condos. And when that happens, and it will one of these days, it'd be nice to be able to tie all that together. So that comes back to the land trust. My brother was the original city planner in Vail. That's where I get some of my ideas from. And it just come by it naturally. But anyhow, we come back to that, and who are the two people? Well, there's Sri actually involved. John Doyle's daughter that comes to the meetings. What's the other gal's name that shows up all the time that's so passionate? I can't think of her name. She inherited the property. And then we have Michael Reed. And Mike really surprised me that night. But he was upset, and he pointed out a good thing, and he came in here unsolicited. I think he said he wasn't planning on even coming to the meeting or talking. But I think that can get turned around. And I think a land trade with the city, that it came to a crashing halt once, but that doesn't mean there's not another parcel of land out there we could work together for or have a vision for that. And then back to the other landowners, they're not going to be living forever, and maybe they don't have any heirs. So it ends up in an estate. So we try to work with them long term. That's how a lot of these agreements get put together with the game and fish for access to the stream fronts and so forth. But that's what's missing in our program here. And we've had some 1% money kicking around that was earmarked for shelters and whatever else, the amphitheaters, and those all got pushed away. But some of that funding's out there right now. And we're not pitching selling our property to the Parks Department. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to help y'all. And looking at it to the average person in the public, the younger generation, they want to get up there and they want to use that mountain. So if we find more places, but the other alternative is Ponderosa Park. And then there's got to be gobs of ground out there on that Bear Rec property at the lake to develop bike trails, isn't there? Has to be miles and miles and miles of it. Granted, it's not real nice and cool in the trees and what have you, but
Well, just to make a comment about that, that's actually in the 10-year plan for the.
I knew you had that. That came up at one of those meetings. So, but what happened is I think the bicycle groups probably got a little bit more organized than everybody else, and you nailed it. They felt like they took ownership when they developed some of those trails up there. And we're past all that. The signage, multiple use, that hit home. But there's still, we still have some areas where we need to segregate too. We did that with the cross-country skiers and the snowmobilers early on. There's kind of a conflict brewing, another one up there. I can't remember what the heck it is, and I'm not going to waste any more of your time with that. We'll talk about it another time. But, you know, we used to have some workshops that we put together with the different user groups as a Parks Board, you know, way back. And those things were pretty darn functional. And you get to get the feedback. You know, you don't make any commitments to them, but you get to hear what some of their ideas are. And Jim, he picked up the pieces on the cross-country ski and the Nordic ski program. Look what that's turned into. And he worked really hard to basically negotiate and mitigate the argument and referendum and what have you, where you got snowshoers on there. There's lots of snowshoers, and they aren't creating any problem amongst themselves. And you have, I think, an issue that came up. There's people wanting to walk dogs up there really bad. So, you know, and there's a salvation to that. They operate out on the same edge of the trail that the bikers ride on. And the mountain bikers get along fine with those people up there. And Roy, you've been a big part of helping get that done. I know that. On them. So they can coexist in some areas, but that comes back to the motorized bikes in Rotary Park. There's no room for those there, particularly on the lower end of that. There's plenty of other places to go ride those motorbikes on it, and how they can ride them on the road if that's the particular case. But don't be scared to draw that line in the sand, because we did it with the snowmobilers, separating them from the cross-country skiers, and here, you know, 30, 40 years later, it's still working. And look what that program has developed into. And the other thing you've got going is, you know, with the Casper Mountain Outdoor Center, that's the greatest thing you did was rename that. I went on record in many of these meetings. They had a fantastic turnout for their fun days last weekend with fat tire bikes, small bikes, and they're working cohesive. So we took the connotation of the gun range away from that, and that's when I backed away from all of that. And that's a good thing up there. You know, and the diversity, and then they even had a snowmobile race there. You know, I never thought I'd ever see that, and those are bridge builders, those types of activities. They held it at the Outdoor Center. Stuart, if you're not aware of that, they had a vintage snowmobile race, and Rozier jumped right on that, and they threw that together in about 4 days, Coleman Construction. And it didn't even affect the Nordic people, did it, Jim? It caused a lot of noise there for a while, but it took that segment of the trail system out, but everybody understood, and they went away. And I don't think there's been any encroachment of snowmobilers back on the trail system since the race was over with. So enough for my soapbox. Hopefully I made some sense.
Absolutely, thank you.
You betcha.
Any other public comments? Okay, we'll move to board member comments, and we'll start over here.
I just want to say appreciate your open door policy, Tim, and I appreciate you coming up and keeping us input on things that are going on. Thank you for your suggestions, Tracy. It's helpful. I think we had some good ideas about our next work session and where we want to go with that, so thanks.
Jim?
Well, thank you, Tracy. We're always interested in what you have to say. Sometimes it's too long, but that's you. So, yeah, I think the meeting went well tonight, and we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Stuart?
Thanks, Tim, I appreciate it. Thank you. I do appreciate it. I didn't mean to jump you. There's a lot of things going on right now. It seems like we on the board are not knowing what's going on. Or at least I feel that way. You know, we got a meeting on the 26th. You know, who set that? I don't know. We've got some things happening here that are kind of blindsiding me. I'd like to come talk to you. We'll get those taken care of. Good conversation. Tracy, thank you. Good ideas. We really need to come up with a plan there on that trail, an alternate plan. And, you know, I've been working on this. I've gone back in the records. We've talked. This Parks Board before 1995 way back, has been dealing with this same trail issue, and it hasn't gotten any better. I mean, itsy bitsy pieces, so let's keep working on that. That's really all I have right now. Thank you.
Tim, I know you're kind of in between a rock and a hard spot on some of this stuff. You've inherited a lot of issues, and nobody's going to deny that. So I think there's, between the lake and everything else, I'm glad that we're going to finally move forward and get some of the hazards taken out of Ponderosa Park. I think that's going to be a positive for everybody to get rid of those potential lawsuits and hazards. I mean, we had somebody get hurt last year on the main road going in there, and off the county road. So I think that's really good, and I'm glad that we're getting things done out at the lakes. I feel your pain as far as the Bureau of Rec goes. I've dealt with plenty of government agencies over the years, and they move at the speed of a snail, which is kind of tough for everybody. When you want to go in there and get things done, and it just doesn't happen. So, Tracy, I do appreciate your comments tonight. There's a lot of things that need to be taken care of. And it's not just Rotary Park, it's everything on the mountain, it's everything at the lakes. And it's just going to take time. And I think everybody realizes that, but most of us have seen a lot of promises over the years without things happening, and we're happy to see things moving forward. So, and I do appreciate your open door policy, listening to things, and we'll see what the next public meeting has to say.
Commissioner Kaufman, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, perfect. Well,
If I may say one more thing?
yes, please.
The only thing I would like to ask between now and the next advisory board meeting is I'd love to be able to, like Stuart, thank you. I'd like to see you guys make appointments to see me so that I can understand your input. As an advisory board, that's important for us to have a great working relationship and it not come up at an advisory board meeting. My job is to get the stuff out a week ahead of time. And please make appointments to talk with me so that way we can work through these things. And when it gets to advisory board meeting time, we're all working on the same team.
Thank you. So with that election of officers, I would just like to say thank you. And this is a responsibility. We have an opportunity, I've said this 3 or 4 times, we have an opportunity to move a lot of projects forward. I have a lot of optimism about where we are and where we're going right now. So I think we've got a group here that has good ideas. And I think it's just going to be a little team building between us to get that kind of all moving in the same direction. You've got a lot of stuff on your plate that you're just now finding out about. I get that. So, just some give and take as we're asking for information. Some things have gotten put on hold. Some things have gotten sidelined. A lot of things that we've been dealing with, such as signage and issues like that have been around for years. I think we have a lot of built-up frustration, and now there's just this opportunity to get this stuff moving forward. So I think everybody is on the same page as far as just being excited about actually accomplishing some things. And I have to agree with Tracy on one thing as far as the rules and regulations. Yeah, we don't have to be in a big hurry, although when we talk to law enforcement, there are some issues that have to be dealt with by rules and regulations so that we can fit other pieces of the puzzle in place. So this is something that I feel strongly about, that we need to get it done, and yes, we need to get it done right. So I agree with you on both your points. But I'm super optimistic, and I want to thank you guys for showing up, and thank the board for their hard work, and look forward to the next year and what we can accomplish. So with that, I'm done.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion to